going back, not gonna buy into all that. Hey, hey, ain't gonna hide, gonna let all the fears slide. Got Mother Nature, it's on my side. Got a whole of the loving growing inside.
Hello, everyone. Welcome again to our new Now. I'm delighted to finally get a chance to have a longer chat with Amandha Vollmer, Yummy.Doctor. She is, I would say, a herbalist, whole medicine practitioner, homeopathic doctor as well, mother, blogger, badass of health is how I'm going to put it from all of the information that I've had the pleasure of sharing with her. Amanda, thank you so much. Welcome to our chat.
Thank you, Lorenzo. It's nice to be with you again this week.
So we are simply going to title this one Happy, Healthy, and Strong and see where it takes us. So Amanda, do you have a good place you'd like to begin with either of those three headings?
Well, it's challenging times for most. And so happiness seems to be an issue. And the more I look, the more I see we have a problem with a lack of actual holistic model of healthcare. There's a crisis, really, happening right now where we really have to look hard at what's going on and take it. It's not easy to realize we've been sold a really big illusion. And I think the happiness comes from owning, your empowerment. And that's why I teach that a lot. Feeling like you're in control of some aspect of your life rather than giving it away to other people. And then what is peace? What is peace in your life? What brings you to that still and silent place inside that you can actually hear the divine? Or is it going into nature so that you can feel connected? People who are just milling about in the cities and they don't have connection with others, especially now. A lot of what's been done with this microabuse over the last 18 months is akin to what a narcissist does to its victims, which is to the constant microabusing of the individual and creating trauma bonds and creating all kinds of confusion and doubt. And so you cling to what you think you know, because that's the habituated human will go to where they think is the most comforting place, which tends to be a lot of bad habits like drug use or alcohol use or all kinds of, you name the vice and it's there as an escapism. And I think everything now is either you have to look really hard at yourself and what you're doing and why, and then try to see how you can meet your needs properly for yourself rather than getting stuck in this psychological exercise that's, basically meant to make you comply with a tyrannical oligarchy. So there's a lot of work to do, but it starts with you. So that's the good news.
I love it. I've been to so many doctors in my time, so-called doctors, I'm going to call them, with their white coats and the serious looks on their faces. And the last thing they talk about is the first thing you mentioned, which is probably the first thing any doctor should talk about when someone has some sort of imbalance in their physical being, whatever that happens to be, is to look at what's going on the inside on an energetic level as to what led you down the path to cause your sickness or disease or dis-ease, as you say, lack of peace, lack of happiness. So, that is, again, one of the things that attracted me to your videos originally was the full approach, let's put it that way, that you take to sharing with people what could work for them, on their own personal journey back to soundness, wholeness, integrity, health.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember when I was in naturopathic college, and one of the more shapely courses that we were learning about was called the determinants of health. And so it was all social determinants, basically. And I found that really fascinating because, it was, if you were poor, that's going to affect your health outcome. If you lived in a city versus living in the country, there are different health outcomes. If you had two parents versus one parent, different health outcomes. If you're born C-section, if you're born vaginal birth, different health outcomes, and all of the different nuances to an individual and how they proceeded in viewing themselves, viewing their reality, and what those blockades, like if you don't have any support. I mean, how are you supposed to get the motivation to health? You have to be self-motivated. And were you raised self-motivated? And all of those factors. So I found that really interesting. And that's why when we look at the holism and we talk about holistic medicine, all those involvements are present and they're on the table, right? They can't be just thrown away because those have shaped the person and how they view their reality. And, they have to do a certain amount of work to untether some false beliefs before they can move forward. I see a lot of people sitting in fear and they don't want to move forward on something because they don't like it or they don't want to, or these kinds of behaviors. And that means that their psyche is still actually working from their damaged inner child. So because that's what children say. I don't want to clean my room. I don't want to eat my peas for dinner, and I see the same languaging coming out, just twisted in and sort of looking like it's adult-ish, but it's not. And so a lot of the first places we go is to acknowledge that trauma or that damaged inner child, and acknowledge, if they acknowledge that inside themselves, then they can get ahead, quite with the work ahead for them. And that I find sometimes the groundwork that has to be done before you even proceed. And okay, here's what you have to actually do. And for that to occur en masse, that means a whole revival in medicine. I mean, ultimately, because it's just not acknowledged. It's not done properly. And in order to do it properly, then you have to have the receiving for that. And that's not reasonable in the person-to-person model the way it is. The original way that I wanted to do the healing, the support, is with you have a team of practitioners that will see that client and address all the different realms of them, because it's not really reasonable for only one person to do that work with that person. So they would see a massage therapist, they would see a hydrotherapist, they would go and have a homeopathic done. And all of those people would then meet around that individual and discuss that individual and see how, what would be best for them or what they learned about them. To me, that would be like a penultimate kind of proper health clinic setup, as far as an immersion goes. And then everything else is, here's the direction and you better do it. You better find the way to do it, because it's you who's going to be doing it, and no one's going to give it to you. No one's going to save you. You're here to save yourself. And here's all the information, and, go and start to employ it and figure it out for yourself and trust yourself. Right.
Well, how do you help people to get there? That's something, I mean, for me, it's become obvious that no one can heal you but you. There's just way too many people that expect a doctor or a pill or a rule or a law or a meditation. All those things can be good in their strange ways, but ultimately, as you say, you've got to get off your own ass and heal yourself, because you're the one that made yourself sick, whatever that happens to be for you. I mean, how do you begin to address that for someone who may be here for the first time going, oh my goodness, what do I need to do to begin to take responsibility for my own health?
Well, I mean, it is different across the board depending, but it's not really in the realm of what that practitioner is supposed to do, because you have to be very careful about, taking on someone else's energy and doing it yourself, or taking on their karma. So you have to tread lightly and carefully around where that person needs to go to in order to feel like they can see what's before them. So you almost have to assess the level of illusions that they come in with. And so one of the things that I have to really do is bust through illusions. So when they start coming and telling their stories, oh, I had this and this is my condition, this is my disease, this is what the doctor said and all that stuff. I said, okay, that's the story. Like, that's the soap opera you were told. That's what you think is real. Now I want you to tell me a little bit about what you're feeling inside your body, and let's get connected to the self. And then from there, they can start to see that they actually can feel what's going on, and they have their own answers. And when you present it back to them, explained, then they realize they're not stupid. They know something's going on inside of their body. They maybe made mistakes, but there's a way around that. And then they can start to clear out the magic show that they've been sold. And then you have to get them off the drugs. You have to get them clear. You have to get them on the right foods. You have to clean their gut, or else they're not going to have a mind. They don't have a brain. They can't think. This is what most of the problem is right now out there, is that you have a bunch of literal zombies walking around who can't think. They can't figure it out. They can't figure out this is a scam. The whole thing from the beginning, even before. I mean, I've been talking about the scandals from this illusion spinning. I saw 10 years ago on my Facebook view when I looked up memories today. The same thing I'm talking about. I'm going, holy moly, I've been teaching this stuff for so long, and here we are, you know, and it's an awakening ultimately. But they have to be able to think, which means they have to stop poisoning them and themselves, and they have to heal their guts. So a lot of the times, if people don't know where to start, I just say, fix your gut, make sure your gut's good. Gut's good, is your liver good? You know, those organ systems need to be running smoothly, and you have to stop the drugs, the whatever, whether it's pharmaceutical drugs, whatever, you have to stop putting in toxins into your body so that it can heal. And the healing, I mean, sometimes healing can be really fast, and sometimes people are like, what's happening to me? Like, I'm having all these experiences. And I think the other part that people have to remember is that their symptoms is the body actually healing. People think the symptoms, it's a problem and it has to go away, and you got to make it go away no matter what. You know, I've had a few cases recently where they're like, oh, I've been doing all the things, and now this has happened, and now I'm worried, and I run to another doctor, and like, you've got to stop running back into just because it's the devil, you know. And what do? When you go again, they're going to scan you, they're going to scare you, they're going to fill your head with stories, and you're going to doubt. You're going to go right back into the arms of the narcissist, and the narcissist is going to abuse you again, and you're going to be circling around yourself and not knowing what the heck's going on, what to do anymore. So one thing I usually recommend is just, if you're going holistic, do holistic. Don't mix. I rarely, unless it's emergency, you need fluids. You're dehydrated, you need fluids, you need to stop vomiting because you're too dehydrated. Okay, great. That's what a hospital emerge is for. Get your fluids and get the heck out of there, and don't take their drugs and all that kind of stuff, and clean up from that, and then straight and narrow and go through your healing crisis that you're going to go through. You're going to, if you're that sick, you're going to feel that. You're going to go through that, and you can't be afraid. And most people have been basically put into this place where they don't like they won't allow to be uncomfortable. They run away from anything that's even minutely uncomfortable. Yeah. Like, no, sit in the damn uncomfortableness. Be uncomfortable now. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? Yes, you're going through it. Now, what can you do to alleviate some of that discomfort rather than suppress it? Why do you think you've gotten to this place now where you're this uncomfortable? What have you ignored for like 50 years or whatever that you're now in this discomfort? Now it's time to face it. And if there's any time now to face all this stuff, it's right here. It's all of this has led us to, it's time to face the music. And I hope and pray that people are brave enough to actually put down the illusions and walk into themselves and do that work.
It's so important. I know when I first moved to Japan a while ago, I remember reading somewhere when they asked, Western people where they thought, they all said here, they did their thinking. Not anymore, probably, because Japanese have become very Westernized, but they used to, when they asked them where they did their thinking, they would point to their stomachs. This is where I do my thinking. And, when I first heard that, it threw me for a loop. And, I can corroborate what Amanda has said is, the more I've cleaned my gut, the more I've started eating healthy, the more I stay away from, alcohol and sugars and all the other silly things, the more options that just seem to flow my way, just naturally you get other ideas that weren't there before because you're not lost in the fear, hamster wheel of your brain, that this, especially with the current shenanigans going on, we'll call it, where they say, you feel bad, take this, you feel bad, go do this, but none of it. I read lots of fiction too. And I see a lot of videos, and other than a handful of the people that I love and I admire, almost nobody's pointing back to the self when someone has a problem, to go, it's your fault that you are, fill in your own blanks. Now, how do you fix that? And as you said, that's very hard for most people to accept.
Yeah, it is hard, and it's not about easy. Yeah. So there you go. It's hard. It hurts, and it's not fun necessarily until you're through all of that work and you decide that now you're leveling up to the next part of yourself. And then you get that flow begins to come around, and you start to realize that a lot of the times you were making it harder on yourself than you needed to, or you were creating chaos in your life when you didn't need to. You weren't listening. I have a flow in my reality, and people go, how can you do all these things? How do you get so much done and whatever? It's, well, I work hard, of course, but I listen to the flow of something. And a lot of people, they just push and clunk through it. Like if something pushes back at you, you have to reflect and go, okay, is that the time for me to do it or not? Is that saying no? Is that definitely saying no? Or is that saying, wait a second, or go take a breath, or go walk in nature and then come back to it? Which is it saying? How do you know? How are you going to know? You need to learn to be your own dowsing tool, where you can check in with yourself and say, my ego thought I have to do that, but I don't. I have to wait. So that's okay, because I'm patient and I can wait, and then I can move on to the next task. And you'll find that you can maximize your day when you think like that, when you do things like that. Because then if I had to make arnica salve today, right? And this arnica salve I didn't know if it was going to get made today. I honestly did not know. I let the arnica salve decide whether it was going to be made today. Okay. Rather than me pushing and frustrated that it wasn't getting done and that it should be done, and all of these pressures that we put on ourselves, inside of ourselves, I just went, well, it might not get made today. Might. It's soaked. It's kind of ready to pour. Will it? We'll see. We'll check back in an hour and see what happens, right? And what else did it say? It said, I needed to go out and do this thing today. So I said, okay, I'm going to go do that now, right? And when you have your flow like that, you're listening to your gut, right? And how are you supposed to listen to your gut when it's inflamed, when you're chronically stressed, when you don't sleep, when you're just filling this gap here and filling up your belly constantly with these ideas that you have to eat all this food all the time? It's not easy in the sense that there's just so many layers of illusions on people that sometimes you're like, whoa. Like I had a customer that came by today, and he's an elder, and he was really proud that he got his 2, injections, and he's still muzzled. And I just looked at him for a second, and I said, as he came and said, oh, I'm double whatever. I said, well, that's unfortunate. Right. And he was like, oh, I think he wanted what the inner child in him wanted, which was accolades, like good for you, because that's what the tyranny is selling people, that you're going to get a sticker because you're a good little boy or girl, because you obeyed your mommy and daddy, because you did what they said. Right. And I said, well, I hope you're prepared for the fall to be locked down, because come autumn, they're going to lock us down again. He's like, oh, you think? I'm like, no, I don't think. I know. As they planned it. They planned all of this. This is a takeover, and it has nothing to do with this fake thing. And his psychosis, he couldn't accept it. So what'll happen is people will compartmentalize in their cognitive dissonance. So he just switched off and said, went into the Spanish flu, started talking about the Spanish flu. And he started to spin a story about the Spanish flu, about something getting opened up, like a lab leak story. I'm like, oh yeah, they probably pulled the lab leak story in that lie too, because they've been doing this a while. Right. I said, well, what actually happened, and I told him, the soldiers got their shots, they were sick, they started the lie that there's a new disease, everyone started muzzling themselves, everyone started taking copious amounts of aspirin, everyone else started to get their shots, right? And they all died. So same story. So have a good day. That's where I left it.
How did he end up coming to see you, a fellow like that? I mean, that I find fascinating, the fact that someone's got their 2 shots or 2 months. Obviously, they're believing the nonsense being passed along. And, you're at the opposite end of that spectrum, so to speak. So I'm curious, how did he end up as a customer?
It is curious, isn't it? Because this is someone who buys something I make called the Green Immediate, which is a cannabis DMSO extraction. And he needs it for his pain. He's probably in his, I think he's in mid 80s. And he just walked in. I'm not even open to the public. He just basically ignored the closed sign and walked in. And so I assisted him. But all kinds of people will come into a holistic store because they don't know what it is. They don't understand. Like we have literally my naturopathic colleagues wanting this too. They're all drunk the Kool-Aid. Like my college, the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine has mandated the shots for residents. They're not holistic. They're gone. They're done. They're part of the cult. So they drank the Kool-Aid too. So they can be holistic or think they're holistic. I had a woman who emailed me, saying that, well, where was she? I think she's in Australia, and all her yoga people, like they're all, did you get yours? I got mine. And they all are psycho. They're all in it. They've fallen hook, line, and sinker for the trauma-based mind control. And so this is how many people put themselves in front of the television who pretend that they're holistic practitioners.
Yeah, I mean, putting a label on yourself usually means you're the opposite of what you're telling people you are. That's what I found. I mean, holistic is just being, I would say following your heart, your guts, deciding what works for you and what doesn't. Like so many questions come up from this. How would someone start to develop their own level of energy so that they have a trust in themselves that maybe they don't have right now? I mean, you can't, lead a horse to water and all that stuff. But how would you suggest someone maybe begins to develop their own inner strength? Because it's, let's say, part of this chat we're doing, happy, healthy, and strong. What would work for them? Like, what have you done, through the challenges you've had? I mean, we all get sad, we all get depressed, we've all wanted to quit, I'm sure. I hear that little voice inside me too that says, go drink the Kool-Aid in various forms. Forget about it, go have some beers, or that's okay, you can go have those extra chocolate cakes and, go take a trip and don't worry about this anymore. Everyone's too stupid, lost, fill in the blanks, dumb, and it doesn't make a difference. And yet my guts keep telling me, well, doesn't matter, Lorenzo, keep on keeping on and see what happens. What has worked for you in that little walk towards your own inner strength?
Well, I mean, to me, it's faith and God and the angels. And I use the angels and talk to the angels every day. And they have heard from me a lot lately. I'm very candid with them. And I've had a relationship with other energies for a long time, and it wasn't really a surprise to me. And I know a lot of other people haven't, and so there's going to be different ways you come to strength for yourself. But that was always my way, because I know this place is an illusion, and I know it's a projection of the holographic, mind. And so I don't take it as seriously as a lot of people do. I understand paradoxes, so I actually take it extremely seriously as an earth school, and yet I laugh at it because it's ridiculous. And so what I mean is, when you understand that this is here to etch you and make you grow and make you into more of what you are, and that you're an individuation of the fractal of all that is, and you're allowed to have that individual expression, then you honor that and you work on that. You work on what that is, and you try to do your best. You don't know exactly. You're not going to get the feedback knowledge. You froze there. Oh, there you go. You're back. Like, you got away. So you're not going to have the necessarily in the moment that knowledge, but what you have to do is you need to try to reflect. You have to reflect and find out who you are and do that work. So a lot of the work that I did on myself, which surprised me that a lot of people hadn't, is I did tons of astrology. I wanted to know who I was, how I react to stuff, what my triggers are, how I interact with others. I wanted to know all kinds of parts of myself, what I like, what I don't like, why, what my faults are, what my chief faults are. I always was focused on what do I do wrong habitually? Like, where do I trip up on myself? So I can pay attention to that, so I can So it's developing the inner witness, which I've discussed before. So it's not the judge. I had the judge. I had the inner judge for a long time. And then I developed that as witness only. It's a non-judgmental witness of yourself. And you have to change the inner voice to not judging you, but just noticing what you do and why are you doing that? Oh, you're doing that. That's interesting. Why? What is the underlying need? And if you learn to assess yourself like that, not pick on yourself, just assess yourself, then you become your own counselor, you become your own healer, you become your own, connected self. So, you can grow. And that's how I see this place. And that gets you stronger and stronger and stronger. And also I worked out, like, physically strong. Like I even in high school, I would go to the high school gym. I would work out every single day. I would work, when I got to university, I worked out 7 days a week. I would not skip a day of my workout because I felt that it got my brain clear so I could study all those heavy, hard sciences, which are just so dry. I mean, some of that stuff was just brutal. You memorize all these things, some of these abstract thinking.
All right, we seem to have a spiritual intervention, let's say, in the middle of our chat right now. We kind of both paused, but, we're back here. And Amanda was sharing, her development on how she became strong in her workouts and being clear. And, I can add before we continue on that, I find for myself something that works. If I'm confused or angry, I'll just take a long walk. It's as simple as that. I'll try to get to some nature. I'll sit under a tree. I'll watch the wind blow. I'll go stare at a flower, watch the bees or whatever. And, I find simply because I'm asking for an answer while I'm doing these walkings, whether it's a breeze or a flower or a tree or a baby, something will generally give me an idea that did not come from my head. Let's put it that way. The world will talk to me in one way or several that will allow a different perspective to come simply because I've decided to allow for that space.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to move energy. Everything is movement in this place. So whatever it takes, whether you go for a walk, whether you do breathing, whether you put sound on that shifts you, get sun, whatever it takes, go for a swim in the lake, go run through the forest, whatever. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do to shift your energy. But if you're stuck, the worst thing is you're not going to sit in front of the television and lounge around and just be lazy. That's just going to fester. So you actually have to care about yourself enough to want it. I see a real crisis in a lot of self-worth issues where people just don't appreciate what they've got. They don't appreciate who they are and why they're in this incarnation at all. They've lost touch with that. And you need to get back into some sense of touch of what you're here for, what your purpose is. And it's there. Everybody has it. I mean, yes, you don't always have to be active to have a purpose. There's everything under the sun that exists. And so that's for you to decide, what that is for you. But you have to try to move energy. That's one of the ways to get strong. Stagnation doesn't last. It festers and creates disease. And that's inside our bodies. That's our thoughts. That's all sorts of things. And everything is movement. So move your body. I think a lot of people have suffered because of all the lockdowns to, go out and dance and, move your energy that way. A lot of people would do that,
Very obvious. The monsters that be, we'll call them, or the ankle biters, as our editor likes to call them, instead of the overschmoes that are politicians. I mean, if you have a half of a brain cell working, I would say, and you would see the lockdown rules, you could see what's been denied, so to speak, or potentially denied is everything that's healthy. Like meeting, loving, dancing, sharing, caring, celebrations, when they make exercise illegal and they make, meeting your family illegal. And, really what it comes down to is, when you see that evil's trying to invade your life and control you and do you damage, at that point, it was hard for me as well to go, everyone's wrong that's in authority and I have to just not listen. Because that little voice tells you, for whatever reason, you're going to get in trouble. Like you say, you're the little kid, or you're not going to get your paycheck, or you won't be able to go to the store and get, your extra gallon of ice cream or whatever. Things you don't need anyways. Is when you see perhaps that the suggested laws are the antithesis of being happy, healthy, and strong. what the fuck are you going to do, other than pick yourself up and figure out what's going to work for you? Really, I find you have no choice unless you want to be a slave for the rest of your life at this time.
Exactly.
At this time.
That is what is being offered. Here are your choices. Red pill or blue pill. Which is it going to be? And now what are you going to do with that? And both paths are actually difficult. You just don't realize it always, but they are. And do you want to give up yourself? Do you want to surrender yourself? Which can be to me, that's alarming that anybody would want to do that to their souls. That's not for me, and many of us who know what this place is about. We would never, ever give our precious soul away to these demons. We're going to overcome, and they are doing there's a great reset ahead, the real reset, the real changeover. And they want to be in a strong position to take over again and rewrite the history and lie about everything again. And we're just not going to let it happen this time. No, not on our watch. You tried, you did it last time, you got away with it last time, you're not going to get away with it this time. Game over for these monsters. So that's how I see it.
Yeah.
So we'll just be over here doing our thing.
That's why we started our New Now and our New Now Agora, is to give our viewers an opportunity to share with people that perhaps have a different perspective, that have a different idea, different ways that you can be alive, that aren't the rote ways they get pushed, through the media or the TV or even the books or movies, what have you, the media of the day, and allow you to figure things out for yourself. I mean, personally, I've seen, even if you look at it from a spiritual level, and if you want to see, we're all born here, and whatever gave birth to you, whatever gave you life, probably didn't want you to be a slave, didn't want you to be locked in a cage, didn't want you to be, a lapdog of the devil, so to speak. But on the other hand, since you have free will, you can do that. Right? You can give yourself away. You can lock yourself away. You can be as fat and stupid and dumb as you choose to be. But the opposite of that would be, of course, you can be as strong and healthy and free and heroic as you want to be as well. And really what it comes down to is what are you willing to give up to gain, and what are you willing to do? What are you willing to suffer, as you say, the hardness that you may have to go through, the pain. I read somewhere, and I've read hundreds of those woo-woo spiritual books that, it takes just as much effort to be stupid and weak and strong. Like, if you're going to get fat, every day you got to eat bad food, every day you got to sit around and watch TV. It's like a lot of work, and the opposite can be possible as well, depending on what you feel is where you'd like to be, 5 years, 10 years, even 5 minutes from now.
Yeah, you're right. It's work, whether you degrade yourself or you raise yourself up. It's effort. So you might as well work on having something to show for your existence, rather than being whatever, I don't know, a placeholder of some sort, but they'll be back. It's not over. For me, I'm done here. This is my service lifetime and I'm out. So I've graduated Earth School a while ago, and I was like, okay, I'll come back. Oh God.
Oh God. I think a lot of people are feeling that. It's like, if you look around, you can see, probably you realize this isn't your last dream. You're here for the challenges. You come into this body, which is how you can go through things. You see what you need to see, you figure out what you need to figure out. Probably once you wake up, you're going, oh my goodness, what a crazy nightmare that was. I'm happy not to be here anymore. Or if you fool yourself, probably the monsters fool you to come back, and then you become part of the system, where I would think, if we're going to get spiritual about it, or energetic, is probably you're being harvested for your bad energetic ideas, thoughts, and fears, which is probably why they get pushed on you from every single corner. And I would also say the fact that they get pushed so hard probably means they're afraid of what will happen if you're not pushed in that direction. You might naturally grow strong, grow healthy, grow an energetic pair, so to speak, so that you can, stand up and make choices for yourself. And really what it comes down to is, what do you feel is best for yourself? I mean, one question I wanted to ask you, Amanda, is like, you've put a closed sign on your clinic, but I know your store is open, and obviously you're giving talks and chats and stuff. Like, how can people reach you? Are you still giving personal lessons? Are you helping people on one-on-one right now? Or is that something you've put to one side to kind of allow yourself to get out to more people by sharing through videos like this?
Well, just like with anyone, when you are reflective on your existence, and you realize that something is either giving you self-harm or needs to change for all kinds of other reasons, you need to do that. And so I realized that what was happening is it was draining me to a point where, I'm seeing increasingly larger numbers of people one-on-one, which was, unreasonable. I run a full-time business, international business, which I make, half the products by hand, small batch myself, picked from the garden I grow around my property, or a wildcraft by hand. Like, people don't understand that I actually grow the medicine and then put the medicine in the products. It's not like factory made or whatever. And so that requires me to be in a certain way. And I feel compelled to teach. I feel compelled to share. So I'm going to do that work. But what I received, or what I felt inside of me, is that I had to stop the one-on-ones temporarily and create all the protocols. So they're all getting put together for all sorts of types of imbalances, so that people can just go, and if they it's just one person, it's one, it's not realistic. Help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. I mean, you will die. I mean, you can't just keep giving your parts of you away, or it's over. So there has to be a better way then to service more and more people. And so that's why I'm actually doing something very interesting, where I'm only taking one case at a time. And it's a very hefty fee. And I will focus on that one case until it's complete. And then I will move on to another case. And in the meanwhile, I will do the things I need, which is I need to learn continually. You continually learn as a practitioner. It never, ever ends, ever.
Never.
So you're always learning new things. You're always compiling that information, and you need to chart that information properly. If you're seeing, 40, 50 people a week, it doesn't happen like that. What ends up happening anyway is you come back to your baseline protocols over and over again, and you put the fire out, and then you come back and you try to sweep up the mess. And it was just getting like that. So I realized, well, I might as well just make the protocols at this point. People can just purchase them for a nominal fee, have them address that. I have videos that go along with it to explain things and the why of it, so that they understand what they're doing specifically. They'll have their skill set. They'll have the education that they can use again and again. So it's like a course for them. And then when I have the real wild cases, I can still carve out enough time to deal with some of these severe cases, and then write about them, teach about them. And then eventually, when I can teach other practitioners, because we're going to need more people to do this work, I can have all the available information ready to go, okay, here's when we see these cases, here's how we start to address it in this way, in this method, or with these sorts of tools. And there's not just one way to treat people, there's multiple ways, but this is the way that I've learned to do it, and that works, and the reason and rationale behind it. And then that person can choose to use that or alter it the way they come to understand the way that the body's working, right? So that, to me, now has to be the next layer of what I need to do. That was very clear for me. And also remember that we're trying to look at self-care, self-love, and self-worth issues. It's I remember years ago, I was like, where was I think maybe 6 years ago, something like this. I realized that, for one, I wanted to understand what it meant to be feminine, like a divine feminine, like what that meant. Because I realized I was polarizing to the masculine, because I was a single mother and I was trying to wear both hats for my daughter. And I realized I was losing some aspect of parts of myself, and I was sinking away from the self-worth. And I had to really fix that and focus on that. And I made sort of an oath to myself that I would embrace the divine feminine, and I wanted also to come into what does it mean to actually love yourself without, I'm not talking like narcissistically, that kind of self-love. I'm talking about honoring yourself and knowing your worth and like what that is and what that looks like. And so I've been on that journey, for quite a few years now. And it's fascinating what it's taught me. And, it really has taught me better boundaries. It's taught me to not worry about what other people think about you or say about you or judge you, because it's just going to happen anyway. people come up with the stories they need to come up with for whatever they need to say to themselves to get through whatever, right? But that's not my concern. It's not my responsibility. And it's just learning that my worth is what I can balance in my lifestyle as well, so that I don't burn out and I don't hurt myself. Because why? It's the same thing. Why, if you give yourself away, and then when you do have to sacrifice a part of you, when you do have to give more than you have, you at least have that egg. You have that where you can. So if, like every parent would know, there's nights you're not sleeping, okay? Because you're up with your kid and you're trying to help them. And that's just how it is. But if you keep doing that to everybody, you've got nothing left. And then you really aren't there when you need to be. You just can't. You're drained. You're done. So what is that balance in yourself? So that's could be maybe a book at some point in time. I don't know, but
well, it's amazing because it really is. I've had this conversation even over the last couple of weeks with people in my life. Loving yourself in a way is honoring the energy you have and honoring your potential to make what you need to change what you need and to drop what you need to do, and to figure that out for yourself, because you really are all you require. I mean, a lot of the information you shared about healing your teeth, healing your body, healing your energy, healing your spirit, have healing your eyes, which I've done, through a book that's 100 years old, for crying out loud. You can heal your sight, so, just to get off your ass and figure that out for yourself, by loving yourself, I would say. And again, I don't mean the woo-woo way either. It's like, you got to love yourself. It's all love, which is bullshit, right?
yeah.
Love is understanding where you stink as well, right? Of course,
Yeah.
where you're weak and where you need to get strong. Being honest with yourself is certainly, I would say, the biggest part of love, in my opinion. And now what I'm very delighted to be sharing with Amanda and everybody that's watching this is, so many people have come to us over the 11 years we did print, over the course of our website, and say, what can I do next? I need help. I'm not sure what to do. Sure, you're showing me the world is, bad in these 87 ways and maybe good in these 3 or 4 ways. So what can I do next? So Amanda is setting up the protocols, and she's not the only one. There's a lot of people here who feel their life path is directed towards, maybe they can't help you directly, but at least illuminating a path that you can walk your lazy ass on yourself if you choose to do so. So, questions, suggestions, recommendations, leave them here. I'll share with Amanda, her contact will be at the bottom of this, her some of the work that she's already done we'll share as well. And of course, much, much more is coming over the next little while, because I feel we've only scratched the surface on the potential for being happy, healthy, and strong. Is there anything, perhaps, maybe we've come to a little bit of an ending for this one. Is there anything else you may like to share with the particular people that may be watching this, as we move along?
Well, to be happy, you have to understand what is happiness. You have to make that decision. What are you defining as happiness, or being happy? And I think the main problems that every sage and every guru has said is that when you don't live in the present moment, then you're miserable, and that the happiness is fleeting. It always will be fleeting. But it's about how much can you bring yourself into presence as much as possible. And that's your guarantee of that, not effervescent joy, which actually in Chinese medicine can burn out the heart if you're in that too high of a state. And it's not in the depressed realm the other way. It's just a calm knowing and that all is well, and that you belong here, and that there's something of worth to you, and that you're meant to achieve something, and it's always going to be there for you to unpack. But you have to get clear, and you have to get now with it, right? You have to get centered in the present moment, Because if you're living in, so when do we get anxious and upset? When we're either, mulling about something in the past that you didn't clear up, or you're projecting into the future, worried about what's coming. And I know we're pretty much future oriented, a lot of people right now, because we're very concerned about, the crazy laws that a lot of our taken over governments are running through very quickly without any kind of debate, because that's by design. But still, and still, you can't control that per se, right? So that makes you feel anxious, and that can make you feel miserable. So bring it back into the now moment. What can you do right now? How can you care for yourself or offer something right now? And that brings your focus back. And that's the only way you can get into a state of happiness that's really real and not illusion. So that's what I would suggest. And to whatever you have to do, whether you write down a statement that reminds you of that, or something that is always there for you as a feedback, it helps a lot. I have things on my fridge that remind me, of the
Notes all over that, all over my desk.
Exactly. Something that can pull you out, that your tethers you to the now, so you don't get stuck in that.
Could be anything, right? It could be a lucky charm. It could be a saying. It could be a colored picture. It could be a song. It really doesn't matter. And I think there's something I'd like to leave everyone with here. It's like the more you make this real for yourself, the more you'll attract people that will help you directly and indirectly. The more it'll become more, irregardless of the monsters making their crazy, stupid rules, which are obviously insane. If you can't travel or you don't want to yet, I haven't traveled in a year and a half, so I taught myself to read Japanese, right? Something I never thought I would be able to do, right? So instead of, going back and forth between Canada and Japan like I used to, I said, all right, I'm here. I don't want to be illiterate. It was making me kind of crazy to walk around, and I love reading. And so I go, okay, is it hard? Fuck, I'm still in the process of doing that. But the fact that I can walk around now and go, oh, I can read that sign, and oh my goodness, I know what that means, and I don't feel so bad anymore, has just shown me that you can take the negative and make it a positive. So maybe this craziness in the world is allowing a lot of what Amanda shared, potential to sit and go in and see yourself instead of being busy in the rat race, the rat wheel. If you can't travel away to the Bahamas for 2 weeks to get drunk, maybe there's something better to be doing with your time this year anyways, right? So you can't go to the Poconos and drink, for a week in the mountains. Maybe there's something else for you to be doing, this time instead. And, you take the negative, you make it a positive, and you've got no one to blame but yourself if your life isn't the way you would like to see it, in my opinion.
Yeah. And take the initiative, and it's okay. Forgive yourself and then move ahead. Don't wallow in it, because that's just going to make more mess, and you're trying to clear it.
Yeah, she's very right about that. The judge inside and the advisor inside are not the same voice. You can tell one is loving and one is mean. I think one is loving, one is mean. You really have to discern that for yourself. That voice inside you, and you've got to figure it out. And Amanda, thank you so much for joining us here today. I think we can go on and on, but I'm delighted to do more and chat more. Amanda has graciously decided to join us in our new now Agora. We're going to be going live in a couple of weeks. If you haven't joined our email list, please do so. We'll keep you posted that way, where you will be able to, as Amanda has time and you have time to join us, maybe ask some direct questions, maybe leave a comment, maybe leave a suggestion, and who knows where it'll lead. But, I found there's nothing but help out there if you want it. There's millions of books, millions of practitioners. People have been doing this for thousands of years, millions of gurus, millions of philosophies. There's nothing but help. If you decide to, turn off the TV, put down the news, and, don't go to the next horror movie, zombie movie, and, look for an alternative source, because, they're there. You just got to do a little digging sometimes.
Exactly. Thank you, Lorenzo.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you for joining us. More here very soon. I'll be back, as she will. And I love you all very much, and I appreciate your time.
Can't make me lie to my heart. No one tells me where I should start. Freedom